a month. I think it's been a month since I've been over here. Sorry. This is a rough time of year for me, in case you didn't know. Anyway, today we're finally going to be doing my favorite or best Netflix horror originals. Now, I did a best movies on Netflix video recently. I will link it. I think none of the movies are still on there, which happens every time I film a Netflix favorites. They always change up the content on there and then it's not relevant anymore, but I still recommend those movies. But I specifically left off all originals from that list because I wanted to do this video of my favorite Netflix originals, because there are some good things coming out of Netflix, some bad things coming out of Netflix. When it comes to Netflix horror, it really is hit or miss, but I feel like the last couple years we've gotten some good hits. We're just gonna pretend that Velvet Buzzsaw and The Open House didn't happen. Obviously, these are just my favorites and I have not seen every Netflix original, and this is all just my opinion. I feel like I dislike a lot of people's favorite Netflix originals, so my list might be very polarizing, but feel free to share your opinions and your favorites in the comments. Also, I know everyone's gonna tell me I should watch Marianne, and I am watching it. I just haven't finished it by the time I'm filming this video, which if I was a better YouTuber, I would have done that to see if it would go on this list. But as of right now, it's not going on the list. I'm about 5 episodes in and I like it. I was just expecting so much more because of how everyone is talking about it online. I've also talked about some of these movies in the past, so forgive me if I gloss over them kind of quickly. So first up, these are not in any order at all. We have The Ritual, which is a movie that came out in 2017. It's listed as a mystery thriller. You're gonna see that a lot on this list, and not all of them are straight up horror, but I feel like there is a fine line between thriller, horror, suspense, psychological thrillers, you know, it's all in that kind of spectrum. So The Ritual follows a group of friends who reunite after one of their friends dies. They decide to hike through the Scandinavian forests and things get weird and kind of take off from there. One of them sprains his ankle, so they decide to cut through the forest instead of staying on the hiking trail, and things, you know, are strange. It's based on a novel by Adam Neville, and obviously it's no surprise that the visuals in this movie are extremely beautiful, and, you know, given the setting and Scandinavian woods, like, ugh, the dream to go there. And it feels very Blair Witch without the found footage style, which I think is a plus. Blair Witch, though, is one of my favorite movies of all time. If you like the forest kind of setting, you know, haunting forest kind of vibes for a horror movie, you'll like The Ritual. It also has lots of Nordic folklore and creepy visuals, and I think the horror in it, even though it's not too horror-y, is very well done. Next, we have probably my favorite thing on this list. As you saw by the title, it is movies and series, because some of the best horror on Netflix is, you know, series, is shows. The Haunting of Hill House. So this came out in 2018 and I am so excited for season 2. I believe I read somewhere that it is going to be unrelated to the story of season 1, but it will star some of the same actors that we had from season 1, kind of like what American Horror Story does. But this show, oh my god, it's created by Mike Flanagan and love his work. It's based on the book by Shirley Jackson. It follows a group of siblings who grew up in a haunted house, and that kind of lingers with them a little bit. I'm obsessed with this show. I mean, it's the haunted house stuff, the visuals and the cinematography of the show is amazing. In one episode, they have this really, really long scene. I forget how long exactly, but it's all shot in one take. But to me, this show kind of feels like one long movie instead of like an episodic story being told. It just is so, it flows so nicely that it just feels like an 8-hour movie, which is amazing because, you know, you just keep wanting more and more, especially when the story's done so well and the acting is so good, and I don't know, just the visuals and everything. You just constantly want more, and I feel like you get so much haunted house, and it's easily one of my favorite horror things that came out in 2018. Next up, we have Gerald's Game. So this was from 2017. It's based on the novel, of course, by Stephen King. Also directed by Mike Flanagan. This follows a couple who take a vacation to a lake house to try to spice up their marriage, and something, you know, occurs while the wife is handcuffed to the bed frame, and she is left there to try to survive and escape. She, you know, is obviously left alone with her own mind for a long time and begins to hallucinate, see things and hear things, and it is just a really, really amazing movie. I think it's definitely one of the best Netflix horror originals, and honestly could have done so well in theaters if they chose to do that. It has basically no soundtrack, which I think is fascinating because you don't even really notice when you're watching the movie because the visuals are what they rely on to create the atmosphere for the film and to really scare you. There's many references to other works by Stephen King, which is pretty common in a lot of Stephen King adapted movies, and also references to other Mike Flanagan movies, which is interesting, such as the headboard in Gerald's Game is actually the lower half of the Lasser glass from the movie Oculus, another great movie of his. Next up we have Bird Box, came out in 2018, a lot of memes created from it. I thought it was really well done. I don't know if people still make fun of it or if generally it's enjoyed by most people, but I really liked this movie. Obviously more of a drama thriller. It stars Sandra Bullock and Sarah Paulson, and it's one of those kind of movies that I like to call sensory movies where they take away one of the senses from the actors. In this one, obviously it's sight. If you see the horrible creatures in this movie, you die. Well, it kind of, drives you to kill yourself, so. And this movie is also based on a book by Josh Malerman. I think overall the tension was super effective. It was a little bit messy at times because of the tide jumping so much, and it was constantly on the verge of spoiling itself. But I do think it's a really good thriller, although I believe the book had a different ending. I remember reading up on that after the fact, after watching it, and I preferred the book ending, to be honest. I know that's a little weird. If you have seen the movie, read up on the book ending, because I think that would be better. Next up we have Apostle, came out in 2018. This movie is very polarizing because I talked about this, I think at the end of 2018, of my favorite movies of the year, and boy did I get a lot of comments saying how much people hated it. So a lot of people disagree on this movie. I really love it. I think it's just not what people were expecting going into it. It is a period piece set in 1905, and it follows a guy whose sister has been kidnapped by a religious cult and is being held for ransom. And let me just say, this movie, it gets weird, okay? It's not what it appears to be for like the first half of the film, and I think that's when it starts to turn to be something completely different. I think that's when people are like, okay, that's stupid. But for me, I thought it was really original and creative and kind of sets it apart from other period pieces from this time, and it makes it like a religious period piece in a whole different way. So I think it was cool. Next is Cam, also came out in 2018. A lot of good gems in 2018. That was a good year for Netflix horror originals. So Cam follows a girl who is a cam girl, of course, and she has her own set of rules when it comes to her streams, like no nudity, things like that. And one day this woman appears who looks exactly like her and starts to break those rules and pretends to be her. So it's a very weird kind of psychological type thriller horror. It stars Madeline Brewer, and I know a lot of people actually didn't like this film, but I think I saw a majority of positive reviews for this movie. It's definitely a trippy movie and it's very strange. It makes sense that a lot of people wouldn't like it, but I feel like it's strange enough to where majority of people would enjoy it, but not so overly strange where it's like too much, too artsy-fartsy, But as psychological horror, I thought it was really well done and the acting was amazing. Next up, I Am the Pretty Thing That Lives in the House. So this came out in 2016. This is another super polarizing movie choice. A lot of people hate this movie. I think it's because it's a slow burn. But for me, there was something that drew me to the movie. I thought it was beautiful, like down to every word that is written for the script. It just felt like a poem to me. Like the whole movie was like a beautiful story, and it was like a haunting story. It wasn't so in-your-face horror. It's not about the jump scares or anything like that. It follows a girl who is hired as a live-in nurse for an elderly woman who was a retired author and whose house is believed to be haunted. So I just feel like the storytelling was really effective for me. It's not going to be everyone's cup of tea. It is a slow burn, not a lot goes on, but it is a haunting story and beautiful, artistic movie in my opinion. Black Mirror. I could not make this list without including Black Mirror. I know it's more of like, I don't know, their episodes are all different genres to me, I feel. I was obsessed with this show when it first came out, like when the first season came out, and although there are episodes I like more than others, which is normal, I think it's still really creative and genuinely terrifying series, mixing like technology, futuristic with horror elements. I just think it's so cool. It really makes the viewer think. I would say that this show is more psychological drama than like straight horror, but there are some episodes that are very like scary, so, and weird. we get a lot of weird ones. My favorite episode of all time, in case you're curious, is Nosedive. So next up we have a 2018 movie yet again, and that is Hold the Dark. This film is listed as a thriller adventure, so it's definitely not much of a horror, but I thought I wanted to include it because I really enjoyed it. It is like a psychological, I don't even know how to describe it. It's just like a dark storytelling, agoraphobic kind of, you know, feeling to a movie, if that makes any sense. It follows a man who is a wolf expert, and he goes to an Alaskan village. It's a remote Alaskan village in the middle of nowhere to search for the wolves that have killed 3 children. It's directed by Jeremy Saulnier, who's actually one of my favorite directors of all time. I love all his movies. He's also known for Green Room, Blue Ruin, Murder Party, and Hold the Dark is another movie based on a book by William Geraldi. So the last Netflix horror original on this list is Eli, which is my most recent watch. It just came out in October of 2019. It follows a boy with a rare disease whose parents are desperate to find him a cure, so they seek out a specialized doctor and take him to this giant mansion where she does her work, and it just happens to be a haunted house. Honestly, I didn't hate the first half of the film because of the atmosphere. I'm a sucker for a ghost story, obviously, but I was kind of bored, not gonna lie. I thought it was kind of your typical haunted house story with just like a different kind of story of like a sick kid and this doctor who's in this like mansion that's haunted. I don't know, I thought it was kind of original, but still kind of, I don't know, blah. But then things start to happen and the story takes a turn, let me tell you. And I was kind of impressed with where it went because I was not expecting that twist at all, so I thought that deserved to be on this list because, you know, it was decent. It's not the best movie on this list by any means. There might be movies more deserving of it that I just haven't seen yet, but I did overall enjoy this movie. It did capture me halfway through. So there you finally have all of my favorite Netflix horror originals. Because they're originals, I doubt that they'll be removed anytime soon. So as of right now, they're all still on there, and I think they'll stay on there for a while. Please let me know your favorite Netflix horror originals down in the comments, your favorite movies, series, anything like that. I'm always looking for more Netflix stuff to watch because it's just easy. So yeah, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will talk to you soon. Bye.